Hello again, this is UML Operator. All right, finally, we're getting to solution approach in this multi-part series of model-driven anything. So we've covered a great deal leading up to this. We built this project you see here from scratch. We deployed it into a SQL instance so that the team can collaborate effectively in driving this project forward. So if you're new to the channel or you have not watched the series leading up to this episode, I recommend that you do so before watching and proceeding in this series. As we go through this series on model-driven anything in actually delivering an API architecture, we're going to cover several areas. To me, the most important area is solution architecture. So we've prepared the project, we've brought in some requirements which were deferred from another effort, and now we're ready to start solution architecture or solution approach. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to go to the solution approach namespace, package folder, and we have a blank landing page for this namespace for the solution architect, and we're going to create 3 packages. The first package, go up here in the browser, right, is going to be solution analysis with a diagram, right? And we're going to choose a class diagram. We're going to go back up to the top again in solution approach, and we're going to create another package. This other package is going to be scope to solution with a diagram. And again, we're going to choose class diagram, right? Go back up to the top again and create another sub package. And this one is going to be solution documents or reports. You pick. I'm going to do it this way. We're going to create a diagram and I'm going to use class diagram. I'm probably going to come back later on and change it to another type of diagram, but let's start with class diagram. All right. So class diagram, and there we go. So now we have let me go back to our blank solution approach. We have scope to solution. I'll set these in order. Solution analysis. We're bringing in navigation cells, right? Just blank navigation cells, not links like I did right there. So navigation cells, right? And just blank for now. We always come in and add those later. I'm going to move this one down because I want solution analysis first, scope to solution second, and then we're going to bring in solution documents third, again as a navigation cell. And there we go. Now I want to get rid of this. I'm going to hit Alt-G, find it in here, right click and delete it because I don't need a link. I want navigation cells. I'm going to make sure we save this, Control S, remove the asterisk, and it's saved. I don't need these hidden elements, and we're not going to be working scope yet or reporting solution analysis. We're going to open up this blank diagram. Now, solution analysis contains packages and folders for various aspects of the architecture. And I'm TOGAF certified, and I tend to follow the capabilities of the TOGAF architecture. And one of those is the enterprise continuum. And in the enterprise continuum, and I create one for each company that I'm working with. In this case, our fictitious company is OurCo. So I would call it the OurCo enterprise continuum or simply the OurCo continuum, right? So this is where we're going to put our architecture building blocks, our ABBs. And this is where we introduce to the project the systems, applications, network topology, and services, for example, APIs and microservices. And we're going to set up folders or namespaces. We're going to add cover pages to prepare for the next 2 steps, which is scope to solution and solution artifacts. But this is where we're going to build and bring in our architecture building blocks that we're going to use to realize our requirement. All right, so let's start bringing in the building blocks that we know. and we're going to bring them into the discussion namespace. This is where we're going to store the assets that we're going to be using during solution analysis and then scope analysis. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to import, because remember, this project team does not have a ProCloud server setup, SQL setup, or RAS, reusable asset service setup. This would be much better if they did, but they don't. So they're going to go out to their asset repository for the project, and they're going to bring in the e-commerce architecture building blocks for OurCo. So we're going to hit OK. Do not strip GUIDs. We want to maintain the relationships of these building blocks across other projects. All right. We're going to baseline the package after the import. So we're going to select import. We're bringing it into the discussion namespace, hit yes. And here comes the package. Then it's going to go to baseline. And we're going to call this baseline initial building blocks, right? And you could put the timestamps in here or any other information in your notes. And this is going to be 1.0. Right? So this is baseline architecture. It is in production. So it is at a production release version number of 1.0. And if the team was to say, no, this is 2.0 or 1.5, you would certainly give it that reference. We're going to use 1.0. All right. We're going to hit OK. It's going out, bringing in that XML file, and it is done. And baseline, we're going to hit closed. All right. So now we have the architecture building blocks for this project that we're going to use for scope analysis. Now, this e-commerce package contains different views of the architecture, all right? Responsibilities, attributes, and even a custom view that could be used for presentations. But what we're going to do is focus on the building blocks only, because we have, if you go out to diagrams, you go out to elements right here, we have everything turned off. So they're just clean elements that we're going to be using. Now, what I typically do is create my own unique reference to this block diagram. So I'm going to go in here and hit Control A to select everything and Control C to copy. And then I'm going to go back down into Solution right here, Analysis, and I'm going to create a folder in here that can be called ABBs. It could be called e-commerce. It can be called anything that you want. But these are the building blocks that we're going to use for our analysis. So let me just call it building blocks, hit OK. And I'm going to use a class diagram. All right, I'm going to open it. It is blank. I'm going to double click in here. I'm going to go to elements, and it has the attributes and operations under each one of them. But what I'm going to do is just turn all of this off, receptions, all of this off, and clean it so this diagram is clean when I paste it. Now we're going to hit Control, Shift, and V. Brings up this dialog box that says paste elements as new. This means we're going to strip GUIDs. We're going to get new global unique IDs for each one of these elements. And then you can pick and say, well, I don't need this element, so uncheck it. And then you can uncheck or check elements that you want to bring in. We want to make sure we're including connections. These are the relationships between the elements. Let's go ahead and hit paste. And there we go. It is imported in. It is in the solution analysis folder under a package called building blocks. And this is what we're going to use to start our analysis, and these have their own global unique IDs that are separate from the original asset IDs involved in the OurCo asset repository. This allows me to do anything I want as far as connections, realization, notes, documentation, completely separate from the baseline architecture. Later on, if I want, I can draw the realization, move those to the official or baseline architecture, but I'm going to work this project separately than the overall e-commerce building blocks. So leave it up to you. It's optional. Just understand that if you've got lots of different projects going on, you're going to start building up a very verbose architecture that has links that may be interrupting or causing conflict or confusion with other projects that are using it. And I'll explain this more as we progress in this series and around doing architecture this way. But this is what I do. It allows me to have a sandbox so I can work on my analysis separate from the official baseline architecture. Once I bring my architecture building blocks in, I want to be able to understand. This is the first thing you need to do, is understand the components, the building blocks that you're going to be using. So you learn about switch views in another video. We're going to go to specification view. And in specification view, we're able to look at any intelligence content that's under each element. Another thing you can do is look at the various and manage the various stereotypes that are here. So we can see that chat proposed. Well, it's actually implemented. So we're going to change that to implemented. They didn't do it in the baseline. I'm working in my own building blocks. I'm just doing this as part of my work effort, right? Cloud data. I'm validated that it's there. I'm not going to say that it's implemented. CRM, validated, right? It's there, but this whole thing may be about third-party providers and support and vendors. I'm going to leave it as validated. And I just go down through here, e-commerce site, proposed. Again, it's implemented, but I'm going to leave it at proposed right now. We may change our mind and say we're not going to use our e-commerce site. We might use a third-party application or something else. So I just go down through here. I look at the status first, and then I'm able to come up here, make decisions that, yeah, we're going to enhance the application, or I'm going to judge the difficulty. Like, for instance, cloud data, I may change what the difficulty is, priority, and so on. And you learn about specification views in other sessions, but you can turn on and take away different views, different columns in the data. Like, for instance, maybe I want to bring in risk, and I want to start assessing risk in the architecture and much more. But I'm going to close field chooser. I'm not interested in risk. Just drag and drop it, let it go. I'm not interested in difficulty this time. Priority may be interested in this, and we'll talk about that. And stereotype, not at this particular juncture, right? What I want to do is just do status of the architecture building blocks to determine as is versus potential to be. In other words, current mode architecture that won't change versus, well, we're proposing that this architecture is going to change, or we're going to create new architecture. We'll bring in new proposed architecture building blocks here, right? I'm going to go ahead and go back, and let's look at another view of the architecture. So relationship matrix, when I go to this is source and target, and I'm able to choose the connection types. I only have one association, so I'm good with that. I can limit to connection, and it only shows me the connections, the elements. So then I know that chat is associated with data supply. And I can start to see the connections here. I can even add new associations here using this particular view. But typically, I'm going to go back to the original, and we're going to start working from here. All right, so now I've got my building blocks in my solution analysis namespace. I can start adding other packages such as component views. I can start building use case views for solution analysis and build on scenarios, sequence diagrams, and much more that you've learned in this channel. But what ultimately I'm doing in this exercise is I'm preparing for scope to solution. In other words, scope analysis. All right, we're going to start wrapping up now. We're certainly not done with solution analysis. And we're going to be back and forth on these two: scope analysis, solution to scope, or scope to solution, and solution analysis in an iterative manner. We're going to go round and round between these as we're bringing in the requirements, adding requirements, changing. Scope may change, solution may change based on the problems. Those are the requirements to solve, and we have a lot more to go. All right. So that's going to be part 2 of this multi-part portion of solution approach. All right. So I look forward to seeing you in that session. And until then, happy modeling.